Council, December 15th, 2014. Mayor Tom Girani presiding.
Start with roll call. Mayor Girani.
Here.
Councilwoman Gavin.
Here.
Councilman Girl. Councilman Hug.
Here.
Councilman McFarland. I believe he phoned. He would not be able to make it this evening. Councilman Morris.
Here.
Councilman Odekirk.
Here.
Councilwoman Coleman.
Here. Here.
Clerk.
Oh, boy. You got it. Jim?
If we could have the license and permit applications first, since the petitioner is here for the liquor license.
Jim?
Thank you. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Thank you for changing the batting order tonight. A public hearing was held on November 19th, 2014 for the issuance of a Class B liquor license for 926 Gardner Street, doing business as Eden Bar. Class B allows for the sale of alcohol on the premises only. No concerned citizens appeared at the hearing. The applicants are Eden and Phil Wycheck of New Lenox. Tony Layson of Joliet will be the resident manager. There are no outstanding monies owed to the city. The police, fire, and building departments, as well as the Liquor Commission, recommend approval of the license, which, if awarded, will be held until the Liquor Commission receives final approval from all inspections.
For your information, this is the bar on Gardner Street, Gardner and Doris, kitty corner from Knoll Park. Any questions?
This must be the old Shortleys, huh? The old Shortleys, Mayor?
Yeah, the old short. Correct, correct. No questions? Okay, we'll see you tomorrow night.
And with that, we have a presentation this evening from Randy Green of Rialto Theater.
Mr. Mayor, may I address the council briefly before Randy takes the podium?
Is there a motion?
So moved.
All in favor? Hey, roll call.
Aye.
Same.
Jim Smith.
Thank you very much. Good afternoon, or good evening, I should say. I'm Jim Smith, and I
can't hear
currently
anyone.
chair the WCMEAA.
Mayor, I don't
And-
think his microphone's on. Is it on? Because I can't hear
think
you.
it
I
is.
can't hear you.
How about move the other one over? That's the one for the, I think.
Yeah.
Tap it, is it on?
Yeah.
Okay.
How's that?
Yeah. Very good. Thank you, Jan.
Again, I'm Jim Smith, and I currently chair the WCMEAA and have sat on the board for the past 18 and a half years. I'd like to address three key issues, if I may, please. First, it's been suggested in several social media sites that both Randy Green and I had either declined or avoided appearance before the council. That is simply not true. We are here tonight voluntarily, and we will be pleased to address any questions or concerns that the council may have. Secondly, I'd like to publicly thank the mayor and the city council for the many years of financial support of the Rialto. Simply stated, the theater could not operate without your continued support, and we greatly appreciate it, and we want to acknowledge it. Finally, I'd like to mention that we do have a board meeting this Wednesday afternoon, and we welcome the public to attend. And they may comment if they choose to do so. It is not our intent to disregard or disrespect public opinion. Frankly, it's somewhat refreshing to see this recent passion for the Rialto Theater. I thank you.
Thank you, Jim.
Do a sound check. Can you hear me okay? Is this working?
Straighten that other one up a little. There we are.
How does that work?
That's better.
Better? Okay, thank you. Try not to hit it too many times here. Well, good evening, and thank you for the opportunity to be here tonight. I know there are questions as to our new marquee, especially about the process of how and when decisions were made and the timeline related to the marquee project. I'd like to provide you at this time a timeline to refresh our memories a little bit because this whole process does go back 9 years. In 2005, the WCMEA voted to undertake a $5 million capital campaign to address needed and expected major improvements to the Rialto and related commercial properties. The WCMEAA and RSTC, and let me explain, the RSTC is the 501c3 corporation, the not-for-profit corporation that works as a companion to the authority, which is now known as the Rialto Square Theater Foundation. But at that time, the organizations asked members of the community to join a committee to support and execute the capital campaign. Among the many items identified was a marquee and vertical sign. Over the course of the next 2 years, donors were solicited and conversations were held with major donor prospects that included the marquee. Let me take a moment to describe the Total Marquee project. The Total Marquee project was designed not only to address the deteriorating marquee that hangs over the sidewalk, but was also allowed us to address the repainting and hopefully electronic repairs necessary to make the vertical sign both compatible with the marquee and also working in a much better state of operation. The total project, which was identified at that time, a potential donor in 2007 was identified and was recommended to the authority that a design be selected that would allow the prospective donor to see what they are being asked to fund. On August 22nd of 2007, the Authority Board awarded a contract to Landmark Sign Company to provide consultation services for the preparation of specifications to design and develop a marquee replacement. At the September 26, 2007 Authority meeting, the consultant from Landmark Sign presented a status report related to the marquee sign elements. At the October 24, 2007 Authority meeting, a design was presented reflecting feedback from the previous month's meeting and voted unanimously to accept the design. I'd like to also add that the design was presented to the Joliet City Center Partnership Architectural Design Committee for their review. And they were pleased with the design and with the idea of how it could symbolize the revision and revitalization of downtown Joliet. They were very supportive of the project. Discussions with potential donor continued, and at the November 28, 2007 Authority meeting, I reported that the donor was presenting marquee donation opportunity to their board for approval. At the January 23, 2008 Authority meeting, I reported that the marquee sponsorship proposal was on the desk of the decision maker for final consideration. Soon after that, we were told that we were no longer giving further consideration to our proposal and had decided to go in another direction. Presentations began again in early 2008 with possible sponsors, and at least 3 more presentations were made, but none of those led to any formal action. As years continued, major donors were prospected by the staff with the hope of finding an interested party. In the summer of 2014, following several discussions with a prospective donor, the Marquee project, along with several other projects, were presented to Mr. Ed Zerkes by Rialto staff, and we learned of his interest of the Marquee project. At the regular August Authority Board meeting, which was held on September 3rd, 2014, the Authority Board was introduced to Mr. Zerkes, and the board was asked to approve purchase of the marquee at their regular September meeting. At the regular Authority Board meeting on September 24, 2014, the board unanimously approved the contract with Landmark Sign. In anticipation of this action and confirmation of the $350,000 gift to fund this project, I sent an email on July 29, 2014 to City Manager Jim Hawk indicating that we are close to having a donor to fund the new Marquee project. I indicated I am moving forward on the groundwork I need to address, and I am starting with the city's requirement for design review. I attached a PDF of the design, and I asked what department or individuals do I start my discussions with to determine the steps necessary for city approval. My email was forwarded to Dave Mackley, Building Services Director for the City of Joliet. Mr. Mackley responded that same day with copies to Kendall Jackson, Jeff Plyman, and Jim Hawk with an outline of what steps and approvals will be necessary. That included a review by city staff as well as a review by the local historical committee in an advisement capacity. Mr. Mackley then indicated what permits will be required and what drawings and engineering calculations are to be submitted for review. Mr. Mackley also commented that the plan looked great and we want to assist you in any way that we can to make the project successful. On September 4th, 2014, I emailed Kendall Jackson and copied Jim Hawk that the deal was done, meaning I had a donor commitment. At that time, I asked in my email, please let me know how we should proceed with design approval. Mr. Jackson replied on the same day that he did have a discussion with the Illinois Historic Preservation Agency and they stated that as long as there are no state or federal funds being used, then no review or concurrence from their office is required. The Illinois Historic Preservation Agency stated that they would defer to our local Joliet Historic Preservation Commission on any review that might be required. He indicated the next meeting of the Joliet Historical Preservation Commission was September 24, 2014. All documents were filed with the City of Joliet Planning Office on September 16, 2014. A certificate of appropriateness was unanimously awarded by the Joliet Historical Preservation Commission, and the next review would be at the Joliet Zoning Appeals Board, and that occurred at the regular public meeting on November 20th, 2014 in the council chambers. On October 24th, 2014, I inquired to Kendall Jackson as to what I needed to do in preparation of the zoning board meeting. He indicated that staff would enter a report that would include that the project did not need state review or concurrence due to the non-state or federal funding, which would then be read into the record. I would then be asked to speak, and that the chairman of the meeting would like if anyone in the audience would wish to speak in support or opposition to the proposed project, and then a vote would be taken. Required documents were filed, and I appeared before the Zoning Appeal Board and presented the project at the following presentation. The board voted unanimously to approve the project. Having completed all the required City of Joliet review of this project, the gift from Mr. Zerkes and the new marquee was announced on Monday, November 24th, 2014, at the opening night of Festival of Trees. I'd like to give you 3 handouts that I would like to share with you, Mayor and the council members, and these are items that have been discussed and questions about, and I would like, if you would, Jim, these are the same, they're just a big number. Would like to share with you some historical photographs of the existing marquees. There were 4 marquees prior to the current. It shows the style of those marquees. Also, I have photos indicating the present condition of the current marquee. And the final is the photos of the newly designed marquee as it will appear on the building, along with the vertical sign, in order to give it a proper perspective as the total project would be finished. I'd like to thank you for the opportunity to clarify this timeline of this project, since it did span almost a decade. And if there are any further questions, I'd be happy to address them at this time.
Randy, I have one question.
Yes, sir.
I seen renderings and photos of the new sign. And the question was come up whether or not it was to scale, because the sign itself is almost 12 feet high. And it looked like the letters were about 2 feet high. How high is the lettering? Actually, how high is the lettering?
Yeah, the drawing that we used at the Festival of Trees was enlarged in order to give people a better opportunity to see it. Those are not into the specific proportion that the shop drawings would show. The actual height of the lettering related to the donor's recognition is 10.5 inches high. And that's on a total 12-foot high vertical surface.
Any other questions?
Yeah, Mayor,
Yes, Jan.
I have a couple. When I'm looking at the artist's rendering and the big arch that comes up, it looks like, how tall is that?
I think from the top height
To the
down
bottom
to the
of the
canopy,
new
to the- I
marquee?
believe is a little over 12 feet.
Because when I'm looking at that, if it's that tall, to me, it's hiding some of the architecture of the front of the building with the pillars and the mosaics in the back. So if you're standing across the street and you're looking at that, it's hiding that, the beauty of that building. Number 2, just to put things in a little perspective, I know a lot of people that are very upset, and some of the things have not been so kind, and Mr. Zerkes, of course, has been very kind in his donation. But something else that was brought up, if you're getting married, the big draw is to have your name up in lights. And for those wedding pictures, you know, you're going to have Jim and Dorothy Anderson, happy wedding day on such and such and such. And then at the bottom it says, in memory of Michael and Mary Zerkes. I was wondering if we could not come to some type of compromise and take it off the front and maybe do a big cement stone in front of the building, or a plaque, a large plaque, so they would know that the sign is in memory of his parents. but not to have it on the marquee. It just looks to me like it's a tomb.
Your specific example was certainly part of our design consideration. And in light of the fact that professional photographers these days use digital photography, we decided it was very easy to Photoshop that information off of the sign and off of the picture. It can be done for anyone who wants to take a picture of the marquee. It can be photo and digitally removed as a part of any photo processing process.
Well, I just think this is my opinion, and this is what people have been calling me about. I'm not on the social media thing. The people that have called me have been very kind and always thanking Mr. Zerkes for his donation, but they were asking if he could do some kind of compromise and reconsider, and just because it's on all three sides, if he could just do something in the middle, so when you walk in the theater, you can see that big in memory of.
I think many of the comments and suggestions that have been made have certainly been heard, and certainly the community will have an opportunity to address the authority board on Wednesday night at their meeting, so that there can be specific record of what those concerns are, and then the board will take in consideration the public comments and give further consideration on the project.
Okay, because it was also told to me, and this, I was misinformed then, that this was already in the works.
It is.
It's already being built?
Yes, it is.
So there won't be any changes then?
At this point in time, construction has started. The question of what changes would have to be addressed at whatever particular time we want to address those changes. So the manufacturing of it has started.
How tall is the sign now,
Currently,
currently?
I can't tell you specifically. I would be guessing at the moment if I could tell, because I don't have the specifications in my head.
Well, it's not 12 feet.
No, I don't know. I don't have the specifications in my head.
Okay. Well, those are the concerns that I wanted to bring forward.
Duly noted. Thank you.
Before we have more questions, I would like if you would do me a favor, maybe the rest of the council, those dates that you went through in your would you email that to either me and I'll get them to the rest of the council?
Absolutely. I'd be happy to do that.
Thank you, thank you. Anybody else?
I had a couple of questions. First, I wanted to acknowledge what Mr. Smith had said. Excuse me. Councilman Garl, I'm fighting a cold. It's good to see the emotion from the community for the Rialto again. That's a positive. And this has certainly been an emotional issue since it came up in the last several weeks. I personally have not publicly given a personal opinion because I'm just one of many residents and we all have our opinions. To be clear, with that said, we should clarify this will be the fifth marquee that the building has had attached since it was built some almost 90 years ago. Correct. Okay. And when we talk about city review, there's some confusion out there. You're talking about the same process that everybody who needs to put up a sign would go through with the ZBA. That we're not part of the aesthetic committee, if you will, choosing the layout of how it's going to look aesthetically. You're talking about structurally, does it fit within the ordinance? Correct?
Whatever the criteria is that we have to follow, we submitted the information requested for consideration.
Right. But that is not the city of council's final decision on what that will look like, as long as it meets the ordinances. That is done by the independent board, which is the WMECEAA. Did I get that right?
If I understood it correctly, the Historic Preservation Commission determined an appropriateness of the sign, which was what their aesthetic consideration was then passed on to the zoning and for the review.
Right,
of
right.
consideration.
Separately, the Joliet Historic Commission said this is fine within their, being that they should be the experts on historic likeness. But I needed people, because if you follow this, both in the newspaper and apparently on the social media, of course, I've got a number of calls like other council members. You know, the one thing they're saying is, why doesn't the council vote to do something? Well, that's not our purvey. There is a duly statutory board created, in Springfield for the Will County Metropolitan Exhibition and Convention Center.
Auditorium Authority.
Auditorium Authority.
Close.
That was pretty good.
It's a long, I like calling it the Rialto Board, but I wanted to be clear tonight. So I just want to be clear, because folks have that question, who has the final say in this? And like any unit of governance, be it elected or appointed, the final say will be the vote as it was taken by the board itself. The Rialto Board, as we call for shorthand.
Correct.
Okay. That's the clarifications I wanted.
Yeah, I know Councilwoman Quillman had asked you about asking, and I want to pronounce his name right, Mr. Zerke, about removing the name in the front. And you did say that that was presented to him, or?
We've had discussions with him and have looked at, if there was other considerations we might want to do. We do not have any alternative presented at this point. We still want to take into consideration, the community's input on this. But I think the donor is certainly expecting what he has approved for, or what he has decided to do as a gift to the Rialto in return for a specific thing to be done for the benefit of the theater. His expectation is still very valid.
Okay. Also, I'm sorry, Mayor. Councilman McFarland, he asked for your apology. Well, he asked to be apologized for not being here. His grandmother is in grave conditions today at, I believe, at the ICU at St. Joseph Hospital. So he's just asking for your understanding that he's not here this evening. He called me on my way here to the meeting and asked me to convey that to you.
Understood.
Randy, if I read my notes, the sign is $270,000.
Roughly, yes.
And what is the rest of the money going towards?
It will go toward the repair and painting of the vertical sign. There's some additional work that has to be done on an electrical basis for connections of the sign, which is not in the contract for the sign company. There will also be painting of the underneath deck canopy that's over the sidewalk, which is being retained, and that will be repainted to match the color spectrum of both then the marquee itself and the vertical side. So the entire project covers those three particular areas. And as the case in the Rialto, whenever we do anything, all the unanticipated conditions that we find once we get into the project, so it gives us some additional funds to use if there's something that we find is unanticipated when it comes to the installation or the work that we have to do on the other sign, which we're also looking at adapting for LED lighting so that we can enjoy energy efficiencies. And we're looking at the option of having that incorporated into the Rialto lettering of the vertical sign as well. That's a whole separate project that'll be addressed later, but was envisioned when the whole project was put together.
Thank you. Any other questions? Yes, Bob.
First of all, thank you for coming forward today. When we spoke last week, one of the conversations we had, this is a follow-up to Councilman Morris's question. There was indication that there were still ongoing negotiations with Mr. Zerke's. Just so I'm clear, as we stand today, do you see any chance of a compromise here, or?
Yeah, let me just clarify. I don't believe you would characterize it as negotiations. We were certainly in touch with him over the course of the last few weeks just to, ask about his concerns. Is he aware of what discussions have been ongoing in the community? So I wanted to make sure that he knew we were still steadfastly supporting, what we had put forward. So I don't consider that necessarily discussions as much as working with a donor to maintain a donor relationship that we have created.
Okay.
Councilman, could I also clarify on that point? We did meet with Ed last Thursday. To put it mildly, he's very concerned and not pleased with the current situation. He did confide in us some thoughts he had about this, that, and the other, redesign, relooking the sign. And to be real honest with it, you all can appreciate this. It's not appropriate for me, and most certainly not Randy, to comment on that before I take it to my board. It just wouldn't be appropriate. So we meet Wednesday night, and it's going to be discussed thoroughly. But I think you'd have to characterize it. He's very concerned and not pleased. We would certainly hope that something could be resurrected here.
Thanks, Jim.
Also then, it's been suggested by some that this council should withhold the money that we give annually to the Rialto. And we haven't passed the budget yet, if we chose to do that, what would it mean realistically to your budget and to how you would be able to operate next year?
I'll take that one.
Feel that one, buddy.
Our calendar year, your fiscal year and our fiscal years overlap. You are 6 months behind on your process, so we are 6 months into our fiscal year, working on a certain assumptions as you do in presenting and creating certain budgets. So we are assuming a $600,000 grant from the city, as we have in the past, so that we can prepare a budget on certain expectations. To answer your question specifically, it'll create specific cash flow issues come January the 1st. We have been deferring some maintenance and repairs and other items because we have needed to continue with the current cash flow and available revenues at this point in time. It'll create some very serious issues that we're going to have to address, and we'll have to look at some options related to how we finish the fiscal year.
And then just to underline, the meeting is Wednesday. It's going to be in the theater.
We've moved it to the auditorium, to the theater, and we're making accommodation for any and all that want to attend, and they will be afforded the opportunity to address the board.
And that's at 4 o'clock?
4 o'clock.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
Yeah, just want,
Wait a minute, Jan, Mike?
Go ahead.
I just wanted to point out a couple more things. The Community Design Review Board was canceled, so this never went to them. And at the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting, there was no pictures of the original sign. One of the zoning board members asked for it, and it was not presented. You didn't have it that day. And she was concerned about that. And then when I look at these pictures, when the theater was restored in 1980, the sign was pretty much restored the way the original sign looked. So I guess my question is now, why can't we make the design look old but make it updated with the LED lights?
Well, let me go back first of all, and the first thing that you asked about was related to the historical photographs for the
Zoning board. Mm-hmm.
I was not aware that they were requested at the time. We presented all the information that we were asked in our application. So if there was a need for that, we would have certainly been happy to have provided that.
No.
I'm sorry, what was the next question?
The Community Design Review Board did not meet, so it never went to them, because their November meeting was canceled.
All right, that committee is new to me. It was not prescribed in the process for submission for final review of the project. It was not contained in any of the review processes that we were presented.
Well, okay, because
Wait a minute. Please, no comments from the audience. Well, you'll be recognized if you want to talk.
So getting back to that, but I know one of the zoning board members was concerned because she had asked, where are the original pictures?
Was that asked of me or asked at the meeting?
Asked of you at the meeting, at the zoning board meeting. It's on tape, you can go look at it.
I'm not questioning that. I'm just trying to figure out who he was and who the request was, because at the time that I was at the meeting of presentation, there was a question, and I believe the staff, and I'm not going to speak for them, was indicating that they did not have photographs available to them. But we certainly have photographs. If you've seen here, we've had these at the theater for years, so they would have been available upon request. If they had been asked of us ahead of time, we would have brought them with them if it wasn't contained within the packet.
Because I know there was some hesitation in that meeting. But the second thing, or the third thing was, looking at these pictures, you know, with all the technology that we have today, why can't it be made to look like the old one with all the updated lighting and the,
Well, and I think that's certainly the
Message board.
question we started out with. I mean, I think as the authority board was looking at the different options that there are, and we've certainly looked at other marquees on historical properties and so forth, you know, what we wanted to do was to be as architecturally complementary to the building as we could. We wanted to be able to utilize new technologies that will give us the ability to do multiple messaging, video, anything that's a state-of-the-art today that'll give us an opportunity to market the events. We also wanted to address it in a way that we would be able to also make a statement, as we were talking about downtown redevelopment, the new downtown, the things we wanted to do, that the Rialto, being a part of this community for 80-some years and being the cornerstone of downtown, can yet address what we are hoping to find when it comes to a new downtown, and show that by having a very, very respective sign that allows us to use 21st century technology for the purposes of stating the Rialto is here today, 80-some years later. We plan on being here for a long time, and that was part of what we wanted to do. There are any number of design options that could have been chosen. The authority chose this as the best option that we had that was, again, like I said, respective to the theater and accomplished what we needed to do from the standpoint of the marquee. What you had also described earlier about your concern on the marquee for weddings and those kinds of photographies. When you take the front on, nothing says Rialto Square Theater on it. So we wanted to make sure that the front face of this contained the name of the theater so that in all of those photographs, and I wished I had $1 for every photograph that's been taken of that theater, or we probably wouldn't be having the discussion today. But, you know, it was a part of our consideration that best puts the Rialto's name in front of the public. But it does so, as I said, in a way that really gives a new showcase and a new look to the historic entrance of the theater.
And again, and these are just opinions that I've been getting, this is not just my sole opinions, just so you know, this, my constituents calling me. In the end, again, I have to reiterate, you could have had all that, but still make it look old. You could have put the Rialto Square Theater in there, you could have had your message boarding and the lights to restore it, to make it look old, like in 1980. That's all I'm saying. That's what has people upset.
Understood.
Mike?
Your Honor, you know, I had several calls, and I did call Jim Smith to get some answers. You know, and Jim, you had told me that the architect that designed this marquee also designed them for other historic theaters, correct?
That's correct.
Okay.
Matter of fact, probably one of the major criteria for selecting that sign company, they did a marquee in South Bend called the Morris Theater, and we had checked out the interior for, you know, historic significance. Beautiful theater, so, you know, nothing's as beautiful as the Rialto, but similar. And the marquee looked good, Mike.
Right.
And the bottom line is, we got a letter we saw a letter from the mayor of South Bend talking about how the sign had improved the attendance at the theater, and even more important than that, it had improved the restaurant, entertainment venues, you know, within walking distance of the theater. So, for me, that was a major selling point.
Right, I did go on their website, and it did look nice. I read called up there, got a copy of the letter that the mayor, I think the mayor of South Bend wrote, was it? Unsolicited. I think that theater is maybe 2,400, 2,500 people, slightly larger than our theater. But, you know, I think that there was a well-written editorial in yesterday's Herald News that put a lot of this in perspective. You know, I think we need to thank Mr. Zerkes. I think we need to thank Mr. Green and his staff, and Jim, yourself, and your board. I mean, you know, the staff and the board of Rialto are passionate about their theater. You know, they love the theater, as we all do. And I think that, you know, I read a lot of the comments on social media, and it was kind of taken back by the comments that were not sticking to the subject, but it was just, you know, mean-spirited and just wasn't directed at the way it should be. So I would hope that at your meeting on Wednesday that, you know, the public, I think they should be heard, but I think they should be respectful, and I think that, you know, get your topic across without getting personal, but I think that the board put a lot of work into this, as well as the staff. You know, two of your board members, Bob Regina and Dave Hacker, love the Rialto, and they apparently, this has been going on so long, they had some input on this also. So I would, you know, commend you for having that meeting on Wednesday, and thank you and Mr. Zerkes.
It's nice of you to say. Thank you.
Yeah, John.
I just have a question. I don't know if this is for Randy or Jim, but you had mentioned earlier about the effect that if this council, we typically budget $600,000 to be contributed to the Rialto for their operations, make sure shows stay on, that sort of thing. What is if you carve out your capital improvements, what is the size of your operating budget? I'm just trying to get a handle on it.
Well, I think the major capital improvements, like the terracotta repair and so
Carve all
forth,
that out,
yeah,
just
all
your
that
operation.
outside is outside of about $4 million.
Your operating budget?
Yes.
Okay, about $4 million.
Yeah, there's some minor capital repair, day-to-day repairs that are within that, and that's probably 200,000 or so.
So basically, the 600,000 is over 10. So I think it's safe to say withholding the $600,000 would be devastating to the Rialto, not just a blip in the radar.
I think that's absolutely correct.
Great, thank you.
Just on Mike's comments. You went out and had the sign, the marquee designed. Then you were looking for somebody to donate. You met with Mr. Zerkes, and he liked it, and he came up with the $350,000. Now, maybe if there was another design, maybe he went along with it, maybe not. Maybe if you ask him about changing it, maybe he'll pull his money. But this sign is based on the fact that you met with him, he liked the sign, and he donated the $350,000.
That's correct.
Is that correct?
Just one more thing, Mayor.
Wait a minute, wait, Jan. Go ahead. Who said Mary? You.
If Jan wanted to follow up on her comments, she can go first. Okay. First of all, just to let you know, I mean, it certainly is an emotional issue, as I alluded to before. Quick, very short story. I certainly have an attachment to the Rialto, and probably nobody will guess my first time there. But it was 1969 to go see Chitty Chitty Bang Bang with my family. Okay? And I remember that to this day. Now, that was during the era when it turned into basically a family theater for movies. Okay? So with that said, we all have, and the people that called me, they all had two things to tell me. We don't like the sign. Can you stop it from happening? And we don't feel we've been heard. And I said, no, I can't stop it from happening, nor am I going to make my opinion that big within the community. But we'll approach them, and you guys did come, for accessibility, for opinion. First, to clarify on Councilman Odekirk's, followed by Councilman Girl. So roughly the city portion of the $4 million operating budget is about 15%.
Roughly, yes.
Okay. Also, the other question that came up in all this discussion is, in the other three signs, three replacement, this will be the fourth replacement, right? How were they financed? Do we have historically? Is this the fifth sign or the fourth?
Yeah, there were 4 previous to this one, I believe.
Right, the original one?
Right, and then I
Three
think
more.
there are 3 others that were.
Right, do we know how those were?
I have no idea.
Okay, I didn't know if any.
How they were what?
How they were financed, the other replacements.
No idea.
Because it seems, and again, I personally would say thank you to anybody, including Mr. Zerkes, for stepping forward. And then, of course, everybody's got to work together, and that's what you're trying to do. But the main complaint I got was that the 2 main issues I got, which are opinion-based, is it does not look good with the building, is what a lot of folks have been saying. Some not so kindly, some with respect. And that's a matter of opinion. That's got to be determined between the public talking to the Rialto Board, the WMC, the Rialto Board. Okay. And the second issue that came up when they called me or emailed me was the in memoriam seemed inappropriate by its size. And that's what I think Councilwoman Quillman is talking about. And I said, I can't change that for you even if I wanted to. That's not within my power as a council member. It's not within the council's, but we'll approach the Rialto. You've come here. So you've solved that issue because, to be clear, 4 o'clock Wednesday, not only will they be able to come to the meeting and observe the meeting, they'll be able to participate and give opinions, the public. Now, and it's not too late for those opinions if they're reasonable and there's some kind of agreement that we can go and tweak it here or go in that direction. The construction started, but it's not too late to make tweaks.
I think it depends upon what those modifications might be. So I think that would have to be something we would determine once we have a basis of looking at the summary responses and trying to figure out what we could or might be able to change at that particular point in time.
Okay. That's the comments I had, Mayor. I mean, I think I'm the 4th person to reiterate 4 o'clock Wednesday in the theater. Correct?
That's correct.
All right.
Jan? Oh, I'm sorry.
So, did you go to South Indiana and see their sign before this started?
No, I haven't, but I had photographs and I had talked with the theater manager there when it came to recommendations about sign companies, who they used, what was their experience, what issues they had with the construction, what were maintenance issues following that. But it was one of the first calls that I made when we were beginning to go down this road.
Is this the same company that designs the Rialto sign?
Yes, it is. It's also the same company that designed the Cadillac
Well, I think-
Palace Theater when I was there.
This design is a little more palatable than this one. I don't think people would object too much to this one. This is more old-fashioned looking, whereas the other issue is You've read the comments.
And excuse me, if I could go back to Councilman Hug for a moment. The question about the reaction to the sign, which is why we wanted to provide you tonight, because at the announcement that we made, we had an artist rendering basically is what we were presenting. The documents you have tonight were prepared by Landmark Sign that shows its position on the building along with the vertical sign, which I think gives the clear image of what that finished project is going to look like.
Any other questions? Nope. Thank you. Randy, Jim, thank you very much. Dan? I'll make you one yet. Here's the other one he was talking about. Jim?
Ready to proceed?
Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. We've got appointments, and then on the agenda, we've got council committee reports under consent agenda, along with our usual meeting minutes and treasurer disbursements, regular claims. We did include, listen to the concerns of Councilman Hug during the budget review, and we've got a request to go ahead and post those position vacancies of the 4 summertime help for our tree inventory program, so that we can reach out to the local community colleges that have forestry programs and try and get some college kids who are interested in forestry and horticulture and try and help the city with some of the talents they've gained from their college education. So we're requesting your approval so we can start advertising those positions as well. Under public hearings, we've got the annual budget for both the city and the library and the Foreign Insurance Board. That is followed by the adoption of the ordinance. And we've got 3 ordinances. So this is item 599, 600, and 601, levying the assessment of taxes. As I mentioned earlier, during our budget hearings, there are no proposed tax increases or fee increases in the 2015 budget. Along with that, it's followed by the memo 602, which is our special service areas. We have 6 of those and a special throughout the city, and these special services provided special taxing areas for a benefit for those particular homes within that special service area. So each year that these are active, council needs to adopt an ordinance for each one of these special service areas, levying a tax that applies just to those homeowners. Memo 603 is approval of the collective bargaining agreement between the city.
Mayor?
Yes.
One
sorry?
question, because I was waiting to see if, on the budget itself.
Yes.
I just wanted to bring up a concern, another concern out. December 2nd was the day that you gave us the budget preliminarily, and you and I had a rather lengthy conversation after the meeting here in the chambers, and we discussed 1 police officer, and I wanted to see 6 more, and we got 4 more, and I thanked you at the last meeting for at least getting the 4. And the same with the Public Works. We got the 4 Public Works, and I said I would like to see 2 more. I'll be frank, we've just had another murder. I don't know that 4 is enough. Something I think the council needs to discuss, whether or not we need to find some more money in the budget to hire more police officers.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
Respond.
Well, I was just going to say that the budget that's before you it has been prepared based on the numbers that we discussed at the last budget hearing. That budget has to be adopted tomorrow night. Now, that doesn't mean that you can't amend the budget throughout the course of the fiscal year. And again, we're taking $8.7 million out of our unassigned fund balance to balance the budget so that we don't have any fee or tax increases, and at the same time giving us a positive reserve at the end of 2015 of approximately 21%, which more than meets the council's strategic plan goal of 16%. So during the course of the year, we will be, if we don't have an active eligibility list for police officer, we'll be creating one, and at any point in time, we can take a look at our financial situation and amend the budget to include additional positions if that's the policy decision of the city council.
Thank you. Jim, I agree with Councilman Hug. And I'm a little, I know we have a new finance director, so I do think that may have been the reason for the delay in the budget being presented. But to get it 2 weeks before a vote, where we had one meeting with conversations about the budget, I think it's improper. Councilman Hall is right, there was another homicide last night. That's 5 murders in the city of Joliet since Thanksgiving Day. It's unacceptable. And I'm not foolish enough to think that hiring 4 more policemen is going to stop all crime in Joliet or stop the murders. But I do know from my experience, and it's been talked about at length, that when the neighborhood policing program was fully funded and fully filled, that crime in this city went down. We have an issue. It's not going away. It's getting worse. Yesterday, a 14-year-old boy was shot. Luckily, he wasn't killed. We had a citizen walking, not a gangbanger, not a drug dealer, a citizen walking out of the Jewel on Jefferson Street who was shot and hit in the forearm with a stray bullet. You know, I said it at the last meeting. The triple shooting that we had a few weeks ago was on the WGN News. God forbid a child gets killed with a stray bullet, and we are going to be all over the Chicago News again. And we spend millions of dollars trying to market this city, trying to bring tourism and trying to bring businesses into Joliet, and specifically millions just in downtown Joliet. I think there are people paying lip service to this problem, but not willing to do what needs to be done. I think we have to find a way to hire more police officers. I have a suggestion. Councilman Girl at the last meeting spoke about the health and welfare account that he believed, and Councilman Girl's an accountant, that he believed that it's $1.5 million overfunded. I would request that we address this between tonight and tomorrow night and find a way to get the neighborhood police program back and try to preserve our city's image, and more importantly, save lives.
Thank you.
Quick question.
Sure.
Okay. Jim, when we refer to the unassigned surplus, if you will, when we refer to that, on the reserve side, I think we came in beginning of last year with about $31 million in reserve. Where are we at right now on the reserve?
I don't answer. Mr. Gadati has that at the moment.
I just want to be clear for those that follow and are concerned within our community like ourselves about the budget too. When we talk about the $8.5 million, we're not talking about rating the $31 million. That would be what a lot of people generically refer to as the surplus carryover from last year that was unassigned. Correct?
Yes, but my concern as city manager is, so we have a $150 million general fund budget. So 1%'s $1.5 million. So we're taking $8.7 million this year to fund the things that we're recommending to be funded, but there was another $12 million that we didn't include in requests from departments for capital projects and vehicle replacement and IT improvements. And if we spend it on, and those kinds of things, yes, they're reoccurring costs, but over, dozen to 20 years. Police cars are every year, that kind of thing. But if we spend our money on employees all the time, that's going to, when you hire an employee, he's here for 27 years. And when you establish your levels, yeah, people leave, people retire, but we typically are replacing them. And so it is a decision battle to say, what do we want to do this year? Is our goal to hire more employees, or is our goal to address what I tried to do as one of our goals is spend our money on those issues in our strategic plan. We're spending money on the software program for fleet maintenance. We're spending money on employees to address and money on Emerald Ash Borer and a tree replacement program, and the things that you identified in the strategic plan. And that's not to say that public safety is first and foremost in the community, but it's a balancing act, and I don't want to sit here this time next year saying I need to use another $8.7 million of our undesignated fund balance, because that will take us below our 16% reserve that you want to maintain.
Well,
Jim, did you have, Mr. Gadati, did you have a number at this moment?
Our estimated undesignated fund balance at the end of 2015 would be $35,700,000.
That's the end of 2015? What about 14?
We are estimating the fund balance would be $44 million.
Okay, thank you.
Now, I believe last year, and 31 million is what we have as a reserve. See, we're talking reserve, and that was a huge issue prior to you coming here. So what we're talking about is about $8.5 million. And to oversimplify, that we did so well last year that we were able to carry over. And of course, instead of putting it in the reserve, we're using it for other capital improvements and some hiring. But my whole question was, Jim, and I appreciate the explanation, it was broader. My question is, we're not dropping our reserve below the 31 million we started with this year. We're actually going to be 1 million above it. The undesignated fund balance of 8 million you're talking about was what was left over from last year.
It's what's in our reserve. Year to year, that fluctuates and changes based on what our expenditures come out to be. We did take a look at Councilman Girl's suggestion about our health care, our medical, and staff was recommended by Gallagher that a 5% increase was a reasonable dollar amount. Now, because we are self-insured, a lot of that depends upon our claims. And so it would be prudent to wait, say, mid-year to see where we are in that account, and where our claims are coming in would give us a better idea where we're going to end up year-end. And if you want to reallocate resources at that point in time, it would probably be more prudent.
Thank you.
Just real quick on that, Jim, I understand what you're saying, but I mean, if you look at the history, you know, at the end of 2013, I don't have the budget in front of me, but I want to say you had approximately maybe $18.5 million of actual cost.
Right.
You're budgeting almost 21 million. And then if you look at the run rate for where you're at right now in June 30th of 2014, you're still going to come up about $1.5 million to $2 million short. So, you know, I know it's you know, it's prudent, it's cautious, it's wearing a belt with a suspender and all those things, but I still think we need to accurately budget those numbers. And if you look at the history of it, we haven't been to $21 million. We haven't been close to $21 million. And again, it's a zero-sum game. I mean, if we come at some point in time and we're over what we budget, you know, at that point in time, we do have a reserve. We'd have to dip into the reserve. Again, it's a zero-sum game since we're self-funded. So again, I think it's an area where we can, you know, be cautiously optimistic and say that if we were to, you know, and this is, it's $1.5 million to $2 million. You know, I'm not sure what the cost of the additional officers would be, but say it's $500,000 or $600,000. You know, I'm not suggesting take the whole $2 million. I'm suggesting take a portion, because I know there's some concern here, you know, with respect to some public safety issues. And so, you know, again, I'm not suggesting taking the whole $2 million, but if that number is $400,000, $500,000, or $600,000 to get the additional officers, you know, I think we should consider it.
Do we have a list in effect right now, police list?
No.
No, we currently do not have a entry-level police officer list. We will possibly by the end of January, beginning of February.
So at that time, okay,
Yeah.
all right.
I think they're in the process of
Yeah,
the
they are
application
now. They're
process right
testing
now,
now.
right? Yeah.
Right.
They are. They had I think they had 1,000 applications. Yeah, so. Okay, Jim?
So item 603 is ordinance approving the execution of the collective bargaining agreement between the city and the International Union of Operating Engineers, Local 399, AFL-CIO, for a period of 2013 to 2015. And the very next item is a similar ordinance approving and authorizing execution of the collective bargaining agreement between the city and AFSCME Local 440 for the same time period between 2013 and 2015. Item 605 has to do with an ordinance establishing participation for the city of Joliet in the new Des Plaines River Valley Enterprise Zone. We have had and been a part of this zone for in excess of 20 years. It is expiring, and a totally new zone has to be formed, and we would be participating with Lockport, Rockdale, Romeoville, and the county as part of this enterprise zone. The enterprise zone does not require the city to financially participate in any way with anybody who locates in that zone. What it does is it qualifies the company that locates in that area for no taxes on their energy from the state, and also a rebate for any construction material that's purchased in anywhere in the communities, in the participating communities, that they use on a construction project within that enterprise zone.
But that does not prohibit the city to offer incentives to get that company here.
Doesn't prohibit that at all.
Okay. I know Dan Vera come to the Economic Development Committee meeting and explained it very well. If anybody has any questions that maybe Jim cannot answer, I'm sure Dan would step up. Has anybody got any questions concerning that? No?
Mayor? I might make mention, to follow up on your comment too, that in fact it did come from the EDC, and it was unanimous
Yeah,
to
support.
recommend, to re-up, if you will, or to extend, so.
Jim?
Item 606 is a notice on declaring certain properties as public nuisances. We have 3 properties listed for your consideration. Item 608 is a resolution approving the Joliet Police Department and Joliet's PSAP's 911 surcharge reallocation grants. This is the tax that people pay on the hardline telephone lines that they have in their homes throughout the city. This money comes back in the form of a grant to our PSAP, and it would be combined for the purposes of purchasing mobile network equipment and radio and electronic communications to the tune of $167,000. Next item is a resolution allowing the sale of a couple of lots over on Ottawa Street to the Warren Sharp Community Center. And this is basically passing this property on to the Warren Sharp Community Center at no cost for a children's community garden. And actually, I believe the property has been cleared and is already being used for that purpose. So we're, in essence, conveying that property for a good cause. They provide food pantry that feeds 800 families every month and allows residents in the neighborhood, the kids, to understand the importance of gardening and give them a hobby during the summertime. The rest of the agenda contains awards of various contracts, which will be reviewed by the Public Services Committee. And unless there's, and the others are change orders and payments that will also be reviewed. Unless there's a specific question, then we have 3 people under citizens to be heard.
Brittany Robertson? She here? Brittany? Nope. Andrew Mahalich?
Andrew Mahalich, 409 Rookery Court, Joliet. Thank you, Mr. Mayor, council members. Last week, I requested that the City Council make its 2015 allocation to the Rialto Square Theater, contingent upon the Rialto Board meeting with citizens concerned about the proposed new marquee. I reiterate that request tonight. Finding a compromise solution to this issue is in the best interest of all parties. The Joliet City Council is the key to enable discussions to take place. I would ask this council to do the right thing. From what I heard tonight, the Rialto is moving forward on the construction of the new marquee. It was a pleasure to hear that there is discussion opportunity to take place this Wednesday. I would like to modify my request because I don't believe a one-time chance with the construction of the new marquee currently taking place, that we're not going to have enough time for citizens concerned about the new Rialto, not only to express their concern about the marquee, but to work on a compromise solution. So that I would request that you approve the allocation to the Rialto with the condition that the construction of the new marquee be stopped until such time that there is sufficient time for concerned citizens to work out a compromise agreement or to see if one is possible. Thank you.
You're welcome. Mary White?
Good evening. My name is Mary White. Good evening to Mayor and all the council members. I'm new at this, so I'm just doing the best that I can. Each year since 1990, on December 21st, the first day of winter, the longest night of the year, the National Coalition for Homelessness has approved National Homeless Persons Memorial Day to bring attention to the tragedy of homelessness and to remember our homeless friends who have paid the ultimate price for our nation's failure to end homelessness. Beginning in 2005, the National Healthcare for the Homeless Council and the National Consumer Advocacy Board joined the Coalition for Homelessness as co-sponsors of this meaningful event. In an effort to maximize the impact of the day, we encourage local and statewide organizations to hold memorials for those who have died homeless in their communities. And today I am here asking for a resolution from our mayor and the city of Joliet proclaiming December 21st, 2014, the longest night for our homeless persons, to allow them an opportunity to grieve and to have closure on their homeless friends who have died throughout the year. So far this year, I have 3 homeless persons who have died this year. And we know, as we all know, Willie Mae White was the first one in January of this year. And so that is what I'm here requesting.
Mary, could you get my office some information about that so we can write a proclamation?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thank you. So do I come back tomorrow?
Can we get it? Yeah, we'll get it on the agenda tomorrow if you get it to my office.
I will.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Mayor,
Not for what?
some people
Oh.
motioning to you.
Yes.
My name is Sherry Lewandowski, and I want to thank Mayor Durante and the entire council for taking the time to listen to what I have to say. This is-
Address, Mary, please.
I'm sorry?
Address.
I'm actually a Shorewood resident. However, I've been a Will County resident my entire 49 lives. And
You
I
didn't have to
think
give us that.
I was at that very show. I am here regarding the Rialto. And first, I would like to publicly thank Mr. Surkey
Zerkes.
for his generous donation of $350,000 and wish to offer our condolences on the passing of his parents. Your passion to honor your parents has not gone unnoticed. We'd also like you to know that we are sorry for the situation that the management of the Rialto Square Theater has put you into regarding their lack of transparency and thrown you into this battle. It is noteworthy that our very public objections are not wrapped around the addition of the family name per se, but the overall drastic changes to the marquee design. A marquee that has been featured the names of countless stars, big and small, several films over the years, and young couples romantically photographing their wedding day with their names elegantly displayed in lights. We ask you, what percentage of the Rialto's revenue came from the film industry? Has anyone on any of the committees considered the revenue ramifications that would not only change what the Rialto might make as a revenue, but the city of Joliet as well? Do you project that filmmakers will continue to pursue the Rialto as a place to be included in their films, especially when the piece is a time-sensitive piece? What percentage of revenue will be lost from weddings that would have been there had the wide-eyed bride, who's been clamoring to pay higher prices for the photo opportunities, written with a written memorial in the frame of the shot? We as a group are not opposed to the marquee being replaced or to the notion that the upkeep of the current sign has become negligible. What we take exception to is the entire design. The proposed graphics and any addition of digitized display is not in keeping with the history, architecture, or provenance of that magnificent Rubens Rialto Theater over the past 90 years. Many have mentioned the addition of a bronze plaque to be prominently displayed in honor of Mr. Zerkes' family. Why is this not even being considered? Again, the thought of a charitable donation was very generous, and we are sure that Mr. Zerkes' parents would have loved the thought, but would they have loved the action? Everything old is new again, is the old saying. We ask you in the utmost humble way possible, don't allow the change of another piece of Joliet history in the name of progress. Too long, it will be too late. Thank you for your time and consideration.
Thank you.
Mr. Mayor, council members, I'm Mary Beth Cannon, 513 Western Avenue.
Wait a minute, we need a motion. All in favor?
Thank you. I think many of us have gone on the record saying we do appreciate Mr. Zerkes' donation. That's not the issue, it's the sign. And I noticed it was said earlier that maybe you can't stop it from happening, but one thing you can do is to make sure that people who are on the WCMEAA, they're the ones that are going along with this sign, don't get reappointed, or at least not until there's an audit done. We have we are in the process of formally requesting that the Illinois Auditor General audit the WCMEAA. We want the books opened. Taxpayers need to know. If everything's fine, fine. But if people don't want the books opened, then that makes you wonder why. Also, I think there's some questions that maybe, I've never served on council, but I think there's some things that maybe you want to know about. Was it a sealed bid? Were there other bids? How many bidders were there? It's hard to believe that there wasn't some type of business in Will County or Joliet, the city of champions, that can come up with a sign for the Rialto. You know, shop local, we're always told to do that. So I want to know why. And yeah, mostly I'd like to know how many bids there were. Sealed bid, what were the bid specifications, and how many? I'll address that again Wednesday, but I know I emailed some of you, and I asked you to please hold off on reappointing some of these members, and I'm asking you again. Thank you.
Anybody else? Good.
Robert Hernandez. I was born and raised in Joliet, Illinois. All 53 years. 809 Westminster Road. My mom just brought up something, and you might remember the movie, Mayor. I can't remember, but she talked about an old Cary Grant movie when she was younger, where a gentleman's or a woman's husband had died, and she was wealthy, and a church needed a new sign for a saint. And she said, "I'll donate the money as long as you put my husband's likeness there." Something similar to what the Rialto's trying to do with the marquee. But what you can do, Councilman Hug talked about what the council can and cannot do. And these gentlemen talked about they were trying to follow whatever guidelines were there for the state and local authorities. The city council can create an ordinance saying that you will meet this criteria in order to accept a grant from us. You know, a few years back when the homeless shelter wanted more money, one of the things the council said to them was that, hey, we don't want you accepting these individuals who have been, have criminal histories with respect to sexual convictions. So you can lay that out and say, hey, you know, you come before the council, you make sure that we have public hearings so that the public has input before we give you that $600,000 grant. And you've got the budget you're going to discuss tomorrow. You can withhold that $600,000 until this issue's been resolved. That's another thing you can do. But to say what Councilman Bob Oderkirk is talked about with respect to the increase in crime, I just want to congratulate the Joliet Police Department because I go out on Thursdays and Fridays, and I go down Collins Street, and I go down 2nd and Union, and there is a huge police presence. But I do believe that Councilman Oderkirk is correct, and that we and Councilman Hug, that we do need to bring back the city NOP program citywide. It's made a difference in the past. In the 90s, I worked with Councilman Mike Turk. We did a walkthrough on the Benton Street area, and we got that closed off, and a park put up there when the gangbangers were taking over that area. And the NOP team did a great job in bringing that area back and bringing safety as the number one issue. Mr. Hawk, you haven't been here this long. I've been born and raised in this town. Public safety is more important than the tree arbor.
Council, not individuals. Okay. I believe that's the rules.
Okay, it's more important than some of the issues that the city manager alluded to. Public safety should be the number one issue in our city. Thank you.
Discussions, new business, not for final. Yes, sir.
Yeah, Ron Gruber, 512 North Prairie in Joliet.
Your motion?
Randy and...
Excuse me, motion?
Randy and Jim kind of...
Aye. Okay, go ahead.
Randy and Jim kind of indicated that the sign that's in the process of being built can't be changed. I'm a mechanical engineer, and I've worked on multi-million-dollar projects, and anything can be changed even after it's completed, if they choose to. It's just that Randy and Jim don't choose to.
I beg to differ. I think I understood that to mean that it may not be able to be changed because the donor doesn't want it changed. That's the way I interpreted it. Okay?
I didn't interpret it that way. I didn't interpret it that way. So it's just, it makes no sense to me that, you know, if the people and the Zerkes can't come to an equitable agreement, that why, you know, they need to find a compromise in there somewhere. And you guys can do something about that. Whether you choose to or not, that's your decision, but it doesn't seem like you're necessarily willing to make that change or make that an important issue for you guys. It's obviously important to all the residents. I mean, the residents have been supporting this theater for the tune of $600,000 for how many years now? Right? It's not, that money's not coming out of your guys' pockets, it's coming out of the taxpayers' pockets.
I'm a taxpayer.
You're a taxpayer, right. But I'm saying it's coming out of everybody's pockets, not just yours. So why don't we have a plaque for every taxpayer that's donated, essentially donated to the Rialto there? Wouldn't that make sense too? I mean, how long have people been around there? Some taxpayers have been there for, what, 50 years? Maybe some have been there for 25 years. Maybe those people need a plaque too. Maybe not as big a sign as the Zerkes, but they need some recognition then. So if that's, you know, that's the route we have to take to say, oh, gee, they've made this huge donation, they get to put their name in the lights. I don't approve of the sign the way it looks either. It's just not, it doesn't fit with the building. But we need to figure out a way to make everybody happy in this.
Thank you. Yes. Oh. Sure, name and address?
So moved.
Second.
Michael Morgan, 3310 Waterford Drive. I've lived in Joliet my whole life.
Second, all in favor?
Aye.
Yes, sir.
I just want to reiterate that the existing marquee that's on the Rialto now is a facsimile of the 1925 marquee. My fear is that where do we stop changing things? I think we should keep the Rialto true to its original Reuben Brothers design. My other fear is, with technology changing at the rate it's changing, if we put these LED screens on the Rialto now, what's to say in a couple years or a few years from now they're not going to be obsolete also? I just would like to see it stay to the original theme from 1925. And that's all I have to say, and thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay. New business for discussion, not to be acted on. Anything?
I do.
Yes.
I don't know if it's new business or an expansion of what we've already discussed, turning into new business. Jim, you had said we certainly have to, we had 3 council members express concern over the levels of police hiring. We certainly have community concerns that are going to be addressed Wednesday, and it was good that the Rialto sent representatives.
I'm
And
sorry,
you said
I
we
can't
have-
hear you.
We have to vote on the budget tomorrow. No, we don't. If we take our time to address the police, if we take our time to let the Rialto, which has come forward tonight and offer that Wednesday to address the public, I'll come back on Thursday. I'll come back on Friday. I'll come back on Monday for a special meeting. We're obligated to approve it by the 31st, not by tomorrow.
That's true.
So we do have time to address the police issue. We do have time to let the citizens be heard come Wednesday at this public meeting that the Rialto is accommodating. We have time for that, and I just wanted to make mention of that.
Anybody else? Betty? John? No? Okay. No need for executive session. Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Motion second to adjourn, all in favor?
Aye.
No.